I'm Jane Hobson, Managing Editor at PAX International Magazine, and today I've got an excellent panel with me to discuss special meals. So without further ado, let's hand it over to my co-moderator, and then we'll introduce the rest of our panelists.
Hello everyone, I am Julianne Ponan. I am the official WTCE ambassador for special diets, and I am also the founder and CEO of a top 14 allergen-free brand, Creative Nature, that has been in the industry for around 10 years. I'm also a person that suffers severely from anaphylaxis, so it is me that you are catering for when I fly on board the flights. So without further ado, let's introduce the other panelists.
Hi. Hi, everybody. This is Sherry Whiteley, and I'm with American Airlines. I am responsible for in-flight dining and service, specifically on the planning side. And so we are responsible for doing all the product development, menu development, equipment planning, galley planning, and of course, that includes special meals. Good to be here.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Wim Pannenkoek. I'm responsible for airline catering at a Dutch company, Krachtwijk Finest Food. We have been in this industry since 1994, producing kosher meals for KLM and afterwards for many major European airlines. And since the last years, we also specialized in the other high care, high risk special meals, all certified.
Fantastic. Thanks, Wim.
Hi everyone, my name is Lance Hayward. I'm the founder and the MD of the Hayward Partnership, which is a boutique global consultancy working specifically with airlines, airports, and all suppliers to those two fine establishments.
Thanks, Wim.
Hi all, I'm Audrey Hart. I am with Virgin Atlantic. I lead the food, beverage, and ancillaries team, and the remit of the team is to design and execute all global menus across all our route network in all cabins, from the food product, including special meals, to beverage and retail product also.
Hi, I'm Gary Weber. I'm the CEO and founder of In-Flight Catering Software. And right now we are the highly sought after software that is allowing airlines to communicate efficiently what needs to be provisioned on every flight. So we do everything from galley planning and meal planning and special meals, pre-orders, the flights or the sales on board the flights, and most recently caterer compliance tracking of all that. We have a big data analytics engine that looks at the results of all of this stuff. And so we have a lot of interesting information on special meals and their profitability or lack thereof, and how that affects the airline's bottom line.
Hi, my name is Thorun, and I'm the onboard implementation specialist for Icelandair. So I handle both big and small projects that relate to the service on board, as well as being responsible for our business cabin Saga Premium. So meal and drink service there, which of course includes special meals.
Excellent. Thank you again to all of our expert panelists for joining today. So we're hosting this partnership, we're hosting this panel in partnership with WTCE, and we're thinking maybe a great place to start would be to discuss some of the unique challenges that airlines might face by not actually having a special meals program. And I think our airline representatives might be a great place to kick this off. So maybe we'll send it over to Sherry to begin, and then anyone else interested, perhaps Audrey and Thorin, want to kind of join in after that.
Sure. I think today's customer is really looking to be able to dine in flight just like they're able to do on the ground. And so it is really important that we have that for them so that they can enjoy their meal in flight. There's nothing worse than flying, on an 8-hour flight across the pond to London and not having the meal that you need as a customer. I think today's customers really are used to getting what they want, right? And so we really want to be able to offer that on board. And I think it's a very important part of our dining experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Audrey, any thoughts on this concept of, what challenges would come from not having a special meals program in place?
I mean, I cannot even imagine a current world where that wouldn't be available, because the aspiration of any airline would be to facilitate an experience on board that likens what customers can experience in their day-to-day lives, so that it is a continuation of their personal journeys, taking them from A to B, but in a way that's reflective and acknowledges their personal habits in eating, as well as, considerations for the uniqueness of their needs within the challenges of our setup, of course. And what is particularly unique and challenging to us as airlines is that there is complexity in ordering mechanisms. It's not as easy as going to a restaurant and speaking to the waiting team or to the chef in person. There are multiple stakeholders in the supply chain. There is complexity in the fulfillment, multiple food handlers throughout that journey. There is a significant lack of alignment at a global scale in standards, regulation, practices. Nonetheless, customer expectations are present and on the rise, and neither should they be ignored, nor can there be a side thought anymore at the scale at which they're growing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thorin, have you have anything to add in this part of the conversation?
Yeah, for us, I completely agree with what Sherry and Audrey were saying. Of course, we want to meet the needs of our passengers, but at the same time, we also want to deal with this on the ground and not on board. So we don't want to put our cabin crew into the position of having an unhappy passenger for no apparent reason. So what we do is try to accommodate for that as well with our special meal program.
Yeah, absolutely. Julianne, is there anything that you want to add in terms of, being not only someone who supplies snacks free of allergens, but also somebody who is that passenger at times?
I think special meals it's quite a challenging environment in itself, but it's great to see so many airlines wanting to pioneer that change. Being the person who has allergies, it's always, okay, you're going to get up at 35,000 feet, and is there going to be something safe for you at that point? And it's, do you take the risk, especially with the may contain? And I think that will probably be discussed later on in the panel of, okay, how do you guarantee that it is actually dairy-free, gluten-free, nut-free, or whatever that might be? And that can be quite a difficult challenge in itself. And I think there's differences between breaking down what is special meals, because there's religious meals, there's lifestyle meals, and then there's also a medical side as well. So those three, how do airlines actually cater for all of those, plus everyone else on board? And if there is an easy solution, that's, I guess, why we do what we do. We produce products that cater for multiple allergies, multiple like kosher, halal, all of those things, and hope that that can give an airline not the one-stop shop, but allows them to have something on board that can suit that customer.
Yeah, absolutely. Gary, Lance, or Wim, is there anything that you want to add on this, very first topic of an airline not having a special meals program?
The challenge is like Sherry pointed out. If you don't have it, you're bound more than likely going to have an unhappy customer pretty much on every flight at this point. Right, the allergies are on the rise. Just the number of special meals that are now being requested has certainly gone up, and so unhappy customer versus profitability, and this is what is the challenge at all times.
Yeah.
The only thing I would add is that there's two things. Sherry talked about the importance of having a comprehensive service for all the passengers, but there's also, especially with people like Julianne traveling, that there's a duty of care sort of aspect to this whole thing. At what point does the responsibility of the airline have when the first thing they say when you get on board the aircraft is, "We are here for your safety," and then you've got people who are fairly vulnerable. And now, has the airline done everything in their power to make sure that that person is catered for? Because this is not a lifestyle choice. This is not, this is something that's essential. It's absolutely critical that they have this. So what part of the certainly the provision has to take into account what is there from an airline perspective that's duty of care to these passengers.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. Wim, is there anything that you want to add from your perspective?
What I would like to add is I totally agree with Lance. It's very important that the meals are on board and in the right how do you say it, in the right way. So I think that especially the medical diets, they are really, really important because you can have severe problems having non-suitable meal on board. We are focusing on making this better known in the world, which is not easy because it's not always they're not always listening, or they're not always saying. For instance, we have an airline that says, well, gluten-free. Well, we produce gluten-free. We have gluten-free, but the plane is not gluten-free. So why would we have this special service having this certified gluten-free meals? Because anything can happen on the plane. So I think that this has to change.
Yeah. So next, I'm kind of interested to talk about the actual process of getting these special meals to the customers. We've covered why we need them and how unrealistic it would be for airlines not to be able to offer these options. So what's the process of actually, excuse me, of actually getting these meals to the passenger in the cabin when it's time for meal service in a way that is safe and is maintaining that duty of care from the airline? I don't know if an airline is, again, the best place to start here, but, maybe I'll just let someone take it away.
I can go if you like, Jane. I suppose I've worked 35 years in a flight catering sort of environment and retailing. So, and the observations that you have is that, first of all, you've got to have clear information coming through. Who the passenger is, what flight they're on, what's their name, etc. So it can all be labeled clearly. Ideally, you know where they're sitting as well, so you can label it onto the actual meal so that the crew can find it for a start. But I think that's certainly from my experience in the past, the information provisioning to the caterer tends to be a bit hit and miss. Very often, you'll get a call from the aircraft saying, "Where's a special meal?" And we simply didn't get the information coming through because of the nature of the booking systems. It very often you don't get the right information through. So I think technologically, that's the first thing that you say: did we get the right information at the right time so that we can actually react? And did you get enough notice to actually respond to that? So that's the first bit. Quite frankly, in terms of when it gets to operations, the caterer has a number of challenges to face when they're actually putting the special meal together. Let's be honest, because the volumes are relatively small compared to the majority of the cabin, there's no efficiencies in scale. So you're tucked away. You're familiar with the labor costs being one of the highest costs you've got, and the efficiencies are really low whenever you're producing special meals. you then talk about the knowledge, the specialist knowledge. If you're in a small kitchen, you don't tend to have that depth of knowledge in terms of what the product is. And so you try and get away with, well, I think this meal will do for this person, and try and spread it across the piece. Whereas the bigger kitchens, they're more focused on the volume. And they just don't have the time to mess around with these little tiny bits and pieces, which it's really important to the passenger, but from a major caterer perspective. So there's a degree of specialism that's so important in this whole thing. I think that when it gets to the aircraft, the next bit of process, the challenge is that as aircraft changes, passengers change which flight they're going to get on. With a special meal, you can't just roll over the flight, whatever the catering was on that flight. You've got to find that special meal specifically for the passenger, and then go and find where he's now on or she's on. So there's a number of challenges that they've got, and really IATA, they do have a quite a comprehensive list of codes that people have to get familiar with. But even those aren't really, and Julianne will attest to this, don't really cover off some of the specifics. So if it's a child meal requiring a diabetic requirement, what do you do? And so there's a lot of guesswork involved if you're not specialist in this sort of field. Sorry, I've talked too much.
No,
Yeah,
no.
I think Jane, that Audrey will come in here, because we've discussed numerous times that you physically cannot order, like if you have multiple allergies, which 30% of people who have allergies do, you can't physically order that anymore. So because the codes just do not allow you. But I will leave Audrey to bring in her views on that.
Thanks, Julianne. Yes, I was gonna actually go on the back of the comments that Lance just made. For us, really, it all starts the process in the clarity of information, both to the caterer in the set of standards that are defined, because as you rightly said, the IATA SSRs, list of codes, are in existence and followed by all airlines. But the definitions of said codes and the technical guidance that backs it up stopped being in application since 2015. And so we, as Virgin Atlantic, work with the collaboration of other airlines within the QSAI group, with Medida Quality being our food safety partner and auditor, to define those standards, because this has been a #1 pain point. Because without that guidance being regularly updated, regulations around all the jurisdictions of our network being kept up to date, we fall foul of the latest changes in regulation. So it was #1 priority for us to have the right up-to-date set of guidance. Albeit this is within a group that is finite, is not extended to the wider industry, and ought to be, really. But certainly that allows us to be in alignment, certainly with the group of airlines that we're in partnership with, like KLM, Air France, Delta, etc., which is, a small step in the right direction. These set of standards very clearly define what Virgin Atlantic expects of its caterers and the level of standards we expect them to adhere to. And that's always up to date. We're literally quite this year in the process of the latest update coming live for our next cycle change in October, the cycle change on special meals. So we keep up to date with all those changes as best we can. It's also very important for the information to be clear to the customer. So the customer comes right at the beginning when they're booking their flight, they're considering what the experience is going to be like, and they want to let us know of their dietary requirements, may that be religious, lifestyle-based, or from medical nature or dietary nature. On our website and in all related comms, we have to make it very clear as to the terminology that is used, and is our customer promise a gluten-free or gluten intolerance suitability, or is our environment free, or just will have potential risk of contamination, and not making false claims as to what we can realistically fulfill across the board of the allergen spectrum. we also then follow that up because a connected chain of information then goes into the training for the caterers, the training for our crew, who are also our food handlers, for that information to be continuously retrained, because it's truly a labor of love. It's not a one-hit wonder. It's continually a topic of conversation and update at our end. And yeah, I think I've spoken enough. I would like to share the speaking baton to my colleagues on the airline side. Otherwise, I'll keep going. You'll have to stop me.
Thank you so much, Audrey. That's excellent. Gary, I see you're on mute, but I know that you have something to add.
I do. Quite a bit actually. So this is one of our expertise. So the challenge that Lance and Audrey are explaining comes primarily because of the disjointedness of this sector of the industry, right? So most airlines are using contract suppliers, right? They're not doing their own catering and their own last minute or last mile delivery to the aircraft. And so we're dealing with multiple disconnected systems. This is where these IATA codes come in. And communicating this information to the various kitchens globally is first complex, making sure that the info gets to who it needs to on time. And secondly is just, you know, it's not offering the clients right now the latest of what's possible. So it's you know, it's just saying I want a gluten-free meal is not a great experience as a client, you know, like not knowing what that's going to be. I'm going to wait to see what, you know, kitchen ABC came up with as a gluten-free meal. And I just want to point out that this is an industry-wide problem, but one that is being solved right now with modern day technology, and it's really actually simple to solve. It starts with being able to offer pre-ordering. But with the latest tech, you don't have to order a week in advance. You could actually, you know, literally still order your meal, like right up to the cutoff point of what the kitchen at that station might have to offer. And that could be sometimes as close as 90 minutes before, right? So right at check-in, you could still be ordering your special meal with today's tech. Lance mentioned things like some challenges like labeling, proper labeling, and getting it to the customer. Where is it on board, that special meal? You know, some of these aircrafts have hundreds of you know, positions in the galley, and it's not obvious where things have been stowed. So those phone calls that he described of, where's the special meal? Well, we put it on board. No, you didn't. That's something that's it's unbelievable how much that happens still to us as a software company, because it's such a simple solution. But you know, seating sometimes is only offered at the gate. So the meal's been labeled and already sent to the aircraft, and the seat wasn't assigned. So sometimes that you know, can get tricky. And so the solution really only is for airlines to be able to offer a great service today is to have a live platform that everything gets communicated through, that is actually shared between all of these different parties. And so as that last minute order comes in for a peanut free or something, it gets processed in a timely manner. And just to add to that companies are we're seeing airlines now moving to being able to offer not just that it's gluten-free, but here are our 6 gluten-free options, right? And which one do you want on this flight? And that's really just a matter of adopting tech. More and more we see airlines working with local food providers, right? That are and because of that, there'll be local food options. And so it's not the same gluten-free meal across all flights for British Airways, for instance, right? So depending on where you're leaving from and where you're going, your options might differ.
Right.
And And all of that's really simple to offer today. And we're seeing a transition, right? As airlines are, it's a slow process to sometimes adopt new technology. There's a lot of players involved, but as they do, we are quickly solving this special meal problem.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that, Gary. Wham, anything that you want to add on your behalf in terms of your role in the logistics of getting meals to the passengers?
You mean me? Yes.
Yes.
What I would like to say is there are two things. One is that being a smaller caterer in the compared to regular caterers means that that we are big in special meals. So we focus on special meals, and this is something that I would like to add as well. Is that it's not only about having a gluten-free meal on board, because this is not the issue, or having a medical meal on board. It's about food safety, about safety of the passengers. And this is more important than having a local kitchen producing a sort of gluten-free meal, because that's not gluten-free. And that's not what I think. That if you have this allergy, you want to be absolutely 100% sure that the food you eat is safe. This is more important, I guess. So it has to be free from instead of may contain.
Absolutely. Julianne, I'm going to pass it over to you. I know that you have a question about the role that packaged offerings could play on board. So I'm going to hand it over to you, co-moderator, for this next question.
Yeah, in terms of solutions, obviously special meals can be quite difficult to guarantee that may contain, which is what Wim was talking about earlier. In terms of even gluten-free, you have to be able to say it's under 20 parts per million to actually be gluten-free. So my question, I guess, is to everyone: if you cannot offer the completely 100% no may contain, could there be a packaged offering on board, and what are your views on that, so that if a person flies on board, yes, they may be a little bit annoyed that they can't have a full meal, but could they have something else? And what are your thoughts on that?
Sherry?
Yeah, Julianne, that is one that is near and dear to my heart, because I completely agree with you on the packaged meal. So we have found a solution that I'm proud of, that is a meal kit. And so it is a kit that contains a frozen entree that meets the dietary need. And then it has all of the packaged items around it. So a packaged roll, which is important, a packaged butter or margarine, depending on the special meal, or maybe even oil, and the dessert. All of those items are packaged and frozen, and then the caterer thaws that out and serves that with a fresh salad and possibly an appetizer. So it reduces that risk, if you will, and helps us give our customers a little bit more consistency. Now, it's going to look different than the customer next to them who's ordering the standard meal, and all of those items are fresh. They're getting the roll warmed from the bread basket. But us having that packaged roll that has labeling gives that customer with special needs a lot of confidence. We also even include a nutritional card with the meal that gives the ability to hand that to the customer to give them that confidence in what they're choosing. And so I am with you 100%. That has been a huge win for us, and something that we have had in the US for several years. We just launched it in Europe over the last year. It's been incredibly successful, and our customers seem to like it. More importantly, I think our caterers like it, right? I really do think it gives caterers a tool at the last minute to be able to respond and meet those needs.
Excellent. Does anyone else want to add in terms of package solutions? Take it away, Gary.
So, like I said, we have a lot of analytics in our systems, and what Sherry's describing, we're seeing airlines who are moving away from that and getting to not these pre-packaged offerings, but to be able to offer something up to the last. We're seeing a greater level of customer satisfaction from that. Okay, so I think that while that has been a great solution for a long time, especially for the larger airlines, larger kitchens, where things are really complicated to cater to one specific individual. Today, with today's technology, it's happening right now. We are really right now witnessing the transition from that old, you're just because I'm a special needs guy also. So when I get on the plane, I have peanut allergies and stuff, and seeing my meal come out in a way that makes me feel like I'm handicapped is not what I want. And I love the ability to be able to order something that's within my dietary requirements, but still looks like it's something fresh and delicious. And we're seeing that airlines who are doing that are getting much greater levels of customer satisfaction. And so I think you're going to see a transition over the next 2 to 3 years as the tech has now made it possible to do this.
But
Right.
Gary, does that work for like can you actually see all the ingredients on the label still? Because as a lot of people who suffer from allergies, they want to have physically see that label. And I know, like going out from the UK, for example, we have Natasha's Law, so that is a requirement on everything. However, when you're coming back into the UK, that is no longer a requirement. So you can have your food on the way out, but you can't have your food on the way back. And I wonder is that technology going to solve that problem and actually have the ingredients like on the dish, or are the crew going to need to come round and say this is what's on the menu and what the ingredients are, because that's another level of safety that the crew are then going to need to be trained on?
So, there is no global standard as of yet on this, but airlines are the ones who drive what is the requirement coming from the caterer. So the caterers have, of course, they have their own tech limitations. Up until recently, it wasn't so easy to create labels on the fly and do things. There's not a lot of time to prepare things and get things done. And but now with today's systems, that's all automatic, right? And the kitchens who are properly certified to offer special meals with dietary restrictions, that they're getting audited to say that they're maintaining standards where they can claim things like gluten-free or peanut-free and guarantee and not may contain. That kind of stuff is all now centralized into a system, so that you as a passenger will get a label. If the airline is requesting it, the technology is there for the caterers to provide it. It's just right up into things like the USDA website to grab every last ingredient, what that might mean for your daily nutrient requirements. All of this stuff is really, really, really simple at this time. It's no longer a burden for the caterers to provide it. But it is, I'll just mention that this is something we see also in the industry as a major issue, is that because the airline is not providing the food themselves, they're relying on the caterers to do what is supposed to be done in order to guarantee food safety. So Wim would probably be an expert on this. So some airlines might say, well, this is gluten-free, but is it? And what certifications have they gone through and stuff like that? Airlines are the ones who put their name, their brand on the line. And sometimes they do it in we've seen a really risky fashion, right? Some of the flight kitchens are not as good as others.
Yeah.
And today, again, technology allowing us to better audit, better monitor, better controls on food safety all the way through the entire cycle. Our capacity to be able to do recalls on lots and stuff. makes it that airlines are able to offer better, but we are still seeing that it's just the start of this transition into this new age.
Absolutely.
I was going to jump in quickly on this just to build on what Gary just said. There's one thing about airlines definitely setting standards and a set of expectations and engaging very proactively with their caterers across their destination network to, raise the bar and get, move that forward. But we do have to remember that we also have to be in line with the local regulations, and those are not all aligned. Not the 14 allergens that we know in European and UK regulations are not applicable across the vast majority of our network. Even when we look at the US, there are differences in what is referred to as a nut and what is referred to in, et cetera, et cetera. So is not as simple as just dictating, I would like you to be compliant to European allergen regulation. And then technology can't solve that. It's a regulatory matter. We certainly can try and have those conversations, but it can't be done independently of what the consortium of the airline, our industry, and actually, the rest of the food industry and the surfaces airline space. One thing, going back to the original question, I was going to mention, it was very interesting to hear Sherry talk about the approach that they're taking. And that's been successful for American Airlines. We are, and I believe that's because also our demographics vary to some extent. We're seeing a slightly different pattern of expectations of personalization and customization on a scale that even pre-pandemic wasn't quite there. And now we're in a very different space. Our customers expect to, if they see the meal next to them, although they do want the reassurances, without a doubt, but they still expect presentation, all of that, to fall in line with the rest of the cabin's presentation. So that's definitely a challenge that we are facing on a day-to-day, and we don't have yet a solution that we feel meets all the requirements. So we are looking at it very proactively. One thing that I will mention, and actually that's something that Julian and I actually have in common because we work closely together on this. We have our main meal offering, but we also show great considerations in opportunities for recovery if a meal is not there, or there might be any diet in any way, shape, or form, particularly when allergen declaration is challenging out of our out of UK destinations or locations, to have a range of very inclusive snacking. We have 2 of the products within the Creative Nature range, and they are fantastic tools for our crew to utilize outside of the meal services, because we know that's a challenge. And that's a challenge not because of just the special meals that we offer, and we offer 16 different types, but the expectations of customers nowadays are way beyond that. It's a cross-reference of dietary and lifestyle, of religious and dietary. I mean, there are expectations that we cannot even at this stage fulfill beyond the quite extensive selection we offer. And having those tools that are inclusive and cross-functional, such as the Creative Nature bars, certainly go a very long way. And so we really show consideration not just for the main meal services, but also what sits on the outside of that, to try and help our customer journey whilst we're still trying to work through it ourselves.
Right, right. Thorin, is there anything that you want to add in this conversation in terms of like logistics issues, or what that process looks like?
Yeah, for us, I think we also just logistically getting the product to us, having our hub in Iceland, an island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We have to deal with that as well. So our reactive time is also a little bit longer if we wanted to make changes to our selection. So what we have put a lot of work into our special meal program in the last few months, and we have come to the solution to work with both in-house items mixed with items from suppliers, because we want to fulfill the regulations and we want to make sure that our passengers can trust in the product that they get on board. But at the same time, we also want to make sure that the presentation is there. So it is a difficult balance to find. But most of our passengers, or as we can see in the numbers, like most of them are lifestyle related, vegetarian, for example, or vegan. There we can perhaps play around a little bit more with the ingredients instead of like with the more codes that are medically related or the gluten-free codes. So we have been like in close, working closely with our cabin crew and passengers to find a good balance there recently. Yeah.
Right. Lance, I think that you had something to add as well.
Let's see if I'm on the. Yeah, it was just quite an interesting dynamic in terms of the discussion, because that need to blend in and not be seen as different, with the need to be completely secure in what you're getting. And I was reflecting that back in the 80s, since the 80s, the kosher meals used to come on board. They were clearly very different. They were labeled. They were going to be blessed. You knew exactly when the kosher meal came on in front of you, pre-packaged, that was what it said in the tin. You are comfortable. You can sit there and you can eat it. High degree of security. But clearly differentiated from the rest of the crowd. So it's trying to work out what's operationally and from a trust perspective, making it comfortable, but at the same time recognizing the needs of the passenger when it gets to a place, well, I don't want to be seen as different, and you sometimes have to decide which is possible. And which bits can you actually do? Can you do both? I don't think you can. I think you need, especially when it comes to medical meals, I go with Sherry's view, is that you really do need to be something clearly defined that says, this is safe for me to eat, because they're not messing around here. If you eat something wrong, it could be, life-threatening. So I think security has to take the precedence. When it comes down to some of the other stuff, potentially you could do something. Religious meals exactly the same as the critical meals. You've got to make sure if it's halal, you've got to make sure it's kosher, and the customer's got to be complete trust the fact that that's what it is. So I think that was the dynamic that came out of that conversation for me, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Wim, anything coming up for you that you want to contribute here?
Yes, there's a lot you can do. It's possible to produce kosher and all other meals on airline equipment. If the flow is right, we can do that. We do that actually. The major airlines, we have the use of their equipment, so their plates, their trays, etc. And they're as kosher and as safe as all other meals, and the service almost identically as the regular passenger. But I think that if there is any doubt or any way you can choose between safe and service or appearance, you should always go for safe, because it's life-threatening. It's really, and I think that all airlines need to get adapted to that. That a special meal is a special meal. It has a special appearances, and it has a meaning why it's special and why it's so pre-packed and other than the other bits. I think this is really important.
Yeah, Julianne?
I completely agree, but I guess from having the allergies, you don't want to be different, and that is another. It's safety always comes first, always 100%. I completely agree, and I think that's why we should probably move on to that question around loyalty of a free from consumer. And 1 in 12 children now suffer from a food allergy. 30% of them have multiple. 1 in 10 adults in Australia, in the US. So it is a growing market. Would there be, if a customer consistently needs a special meal or needs a requirement, making meals more inclusive, wouldn't that be the way to go? Could that be an option? Like if something has sesame oil in, could we remove the sesame oil and replace it with sunflower oil or something like that to make the meal more like multifaceted and just catering for a few more people? However, obviously there is still the issue of the may contain. So yeah, I'd like to put it out there in terms of how do you think the loyalty of that free from consumer can make a difference to your airlines?
Gary?
I do think it makes, oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I just want to add 2 points. So like the biggest the biggest challenge to satisfying the client is how it affects the bottom line, right? So having some of these special meals on board has been the way many airlines have gone traditionally, is just to have a couple of options that are there in case somebody needs one. But like it's been pointed out a few times now, nobody wants to feel different, or often we don't want to. But the other thing is that it really sucks not to have a choice. So where everybody else is getting the choice of a meal, I just get gluten-free, whatever that is, or, peanut-free. And so no matter how you try and approach that, or how great your pre-made special meal is and how inclusive, or it's never going to be the same as getting to choose an option on. It's never going to be great. Really, the solution that's bringing the maximum satisfaction and best profitability for airlines is to have a really solid pre-ordering program that lets them order right up till almost the minute of getting to the gate. And this, just to give you guys an example, we were discussing this with an airline yesterday. They have about 50 aircraft, 100 flights a day. And for them to load 2 extra meals, business class, to cover special meal requirements, is in the millions annually, millions of dollars. So it's just, the cost is crazy, right? If it's going to waste. And so the only solution to really getting, what we're seeing now is the best solutions are options in the special meal category, available to order to the last minute. And that's what's bringing maximum satisfaction, and most importantly for the airlines, maximum profitability.
Absolutely. Okay, I don't want to interrupt you, Gary, and I know Sherry, I want you to jump in here afterward. But I think it might be time that Lance has to depart us. So I just wanted to give you a moment, Lance, to, if you wanted to share any other thoughts, and of course, to thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm sorry I have to jump off on this call, because I think I can quite comfortably chat with you guys for the rest of the day. Now I think that it's not a simple question, this one. It's a difficult thing. It's a difficult thing for airlines. It's a difficult thing for caterers. And I think that if we can all get our joint thinking together to try and simplify, try and make things easier for a passenger in terms of knowing exactly what they're going to get, have the comfort and the safety of what's going to be arriving at their door, and don't forget the commercials of the whole thing. I think there's a value associated with special meals, which is kind of missed very often. This is relatively low volume. It's specialist ingredients, specialist treatment very often, different processes. And I think that's sometimes missed, because I think airlines are hugely under pressure in terms of cost, and they kind of tend to look at it in terms of what's the cost of this, and can I really pay this level of cost for this? Now it's not the same as having a product where you're producing millions and millions and millions of them, and it's just churning out in a highly efficient way. This is sort of specialist treatment. So I think that you need to get your head around the commercials to make this viable and meet your duty of care. So I'll leave you with that. Sorry.
Absolutely. Again, Lance, thank you so much. We really appreciate having you here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So Sherry, I know that you had a little bit you wanted to add in terms of what Julianne had mentioned about, I think the example you gave, Julianne, was maybe removing sesame oil, for example, so that some things could be a little bit more inclusive kind of from the jump. So what are your thoughts on that, Sherry?
Yeah, it's a really, really good point. At American, we're very fortunate that we have the technology, right? We have really great tools. But what we don't always have is time and the ability to meet every one of those special needs the way that we would like. And so one of the things that we continued to struggle with was the difference between vegetarian and vegan. And so it was really difficult. You know, the IOTA codes are close together. We thought we had solved it on the product side, but our caterers continued to get that wrong over and over and over again. And so we eventually made vegan meals the standard. So if you're a vegetarian, you're getting a vegan meal. I fought that for quite some time, but eventually it became about my customers and their consistency and my caterers being able to deliver. And so we gave in, and we actually have seen people be happier with those meals as a result, which was really interesting. So Julianne's idea is a good one. You know, we're a peanut-free airline. I think every airline is now. Where does that go next, right? Is you know, soy the next ingredient, or you know, what is going to be the next one that we need to remove from the airlines? I'm not sure, but I do think she's onto something. I think there's a lot of future opportunities there. I mean, for us, our Asian vegetarian, our bloggers write about it and tell customers who don't have special needs to get it because it's just that good. So that is one of our highest meals. But, you know, as Lance said, and I think Gary pointed out too, it does come at a cost, right? So for us, kosher is, you know, 5 times more than what we're paying, you know, for a regular meal. And so we do have to balance that, right? That is not, halal meals are incredibly expensive. And those are very important meals. Those customers do not have any other choices. But it is not the easiest thing to solve. I loved what Audrey said about snacks and balancing out your snacks. That I think is a really great solution. We do that a lot on our domestic flights, not as much as on our international flights. I think that's a really great solution because you really want to be able to account for a miss. For me, it's always about the risk, right? How can I eliminate the risk of my customers being disappointed, or even worse, getting a meal that they can't eat? I think that somehow would be even more insulting, right? So
yeah, absolutely. So then in terms of this conversation about cost, I want to know, you know, some of the unique inventory and maybe forecasting challenges that come with special meals, and then also how does that relate to cost as well? Gary, is this maybe like a good place for you to start?
Well, I have some insight on it, sure. So forecasting is always a challenge. You know, but today, again, everything, you know, the thing is that today we're into the AI, and so our tech and probably some others are already embracing this to get better at forecasting and analyze everything from you know, the weather and season to whatever else historical data that we can process. But that's preloading these meals without having a requirement from a client has never been the best way to go. It's the way it's been done, but it is really expensive. There's just nobody's cracked the code right on how to figure out how many of these meals do we need, how special do they need to be. But it's incredibly expensive. The meals cost a lot more to produce because as has been mentioned, they're not being done in large volumes. We have not seen an airline yet that is doing well with special meals unless they've got a pre-order.
Audrey, I'm
It's
excited. Sorry, Gary. Audrey, I'm excited to hear kind of your thoughts when it comes to this for forecasting.
Yeah, so for forecasting, we obviously use some historical data borrowed by flight, naturally, as everybody would. We also stay very close to the trends that affect all regions of our network. So maybe because of lifestyle, eating habits changes, and so the rise of gluten intolerances or choice of limiting gluten in day-to-day diets. Same with lactose and milk allergies. We spend a lot of time looking at how the trends on the ground are shaping the customer behavior, because that will map into the expectations that they have of us in air. And to that, then we make allowances into our projections and forecasting. We also consider the changes that sit within our network and the demographics that fly on it, because that also will drive significantly the type of special meal provisions we have on the route by route cases, and whereby is appropriate, because it is a game of volumes at times, because we truly do not like to bundle together meal types to create synergies from to get to a volume that we're required to have, and sometimes it's a necessary step, but we prefer to remain unbundled so that it is a more bespoke experience. So where we can, depending on the route network, depending on the demographic, we will adjust our mainline offering to make it more inclusive. To Julian's point, it's not across the board, because obviously there are significant amount of ingredients to take in considerations, and there's no such thing at this stage as a one-size-fits-all. Much more advanced in the snack category, but like on the fresh product, etc., harder balance to strike. But for example, on our routes to India, by default, our mainline offering maps to the AVML provisioning, so that our mainline standard meets the technical expectations of that meal, and there's no disappointment, and we have the scales of then suddenly having mitigated some challenges that come to the costs. The same can be said in other regions. Even on our flights to Orlando, for example, we have a very family-friendly consideration for the meal, so that the child meal that is quite proponent on those routes is something that we mitigate within the service offering. So we try and bespoke our approach by the route type and create efficiencies in a relevant way, where appropriate. We have gone by default, we've had for a significant amount of years vegetarian meals as standard across our main line. So for us, there's no such thing as a vegetarian special meal, really. There are labels, etc., but this is mainline offering to us. Where appropriate, and when it is not forced and it makes sense to do so and the quality meets our expectations, we will enable vegan too, for example. And we do that very regularly, increasingly so. So, and across our network, consideration for utilizing gluten-free flour, etc., is something that we are playing with more and more across our network, because we uplift fresh everywhere we go. There's no such thing as back catering in our space at the moment. We have to work with the local caterers and their supply chain. So there's no one size fits all, and we cannot make those claims to our customers that all our offering would be gluten friendly, for example, or suitable for an intolerant diet. But we certainly are showing considerations for that.
Yeah. Thorin, how about for Iceland Air in terms of forecasting and inventory challenges? What can you do to overcome those?
Yeah, so for us, I think the case is a little bit different, because we are a smaller airline with just one hub. So we back cater for most of our flights, only a few destinations in America where we don't back cater. And of course, it can be challenging with forecasting for some codes, like the codes that we see most often. We can see an increase in them, but it's a steady increase. The other codes are more difficult to predict. So we can see just a few passengers one month and then a lot the month after. So it can be quite difficult, but all our business class passengers, that they pre-order their saga meals or their special meals at least 24 hours prior to the flight. So we have all the data and all the information beforehand, which helps us, of course, because most passengers do that when booking their ticket. So yeah, but forecasting can be difficult, especially for these smaller codes, the maybe more religious codes, for example.
Of course. Gary?
Yeah, I just wanted to add again, coming back to that these challenges are you know, to be able to offer things and still remain profitable. And when we're trying to just guess how many of these meals we got, you can just imagine. I mean, with an aircraft with 200 people on board, the odds are you're going to either be short or have something go in the trash. Okay, it's very rare that you're going to get it just right every flight. But it's incredible what just 2 or 3 meals per flight does to your bottom line when it goes in the garbage and you're doing hundreds of flights a day. It's amazing. It's millions of dollars annually. And airlines that move away from that and go into you must pre-order your special meal are then able to take those savings from the waste and put them into better offerings for the client, higher quality meal offerings, without raising the price of those meals on board.
Right, right. Sherry, anything to add here for forecasting and inventory for American?
No, you know, it is often a challenge, you know, for us, as everyone else said. I think we follow a very similar process. It is, you know, we have our customers order between 365 days and up to 24 hours before a flight. And then a caterer is pulling that in anywhere between 24 and 12 hours before the flight. But then they have to have everything done 4 hours before the flight. So it just really leaves about 8 hours for caterers to react to that. So we do rely a lot on the historical usage. It is not the best forecast trend. It is what we have, but it is not the best forecast trend. We tend to do a lot of what Audrey talked about, which is to put special items in special places, right? We do have protein and vegetarian options as standard, but we have some routes where we have to put a couple of kosher meals on their standard, and they are above and beyond. So to Gary's point, they definitely do cost us. We have made the decision to do that. Japanese meals, we've made the decision to put a few of those on because sometimes those customers expect them and don't even take advantage of the pre-order. We have it in, you know, every place like a flashing beacon. However, there are still some customers that don't realize it, or something could potentially go wrong. So one of the more interesting ones, I think, is our coast-to-coast routes in the United States, our transcon routes. We have an exceptional amount of Hollywood industry folks. And so on those flights in our main cabin, where we give complimentary items, we have to have a standard vegan item there, right? And we don't do a standard vegan item in main cabin in that many places, but we absolutely have to because we have so many customers on that route that are vegan. And so you do learn some of that. The unfortunate thing is you learn it sometimes by a little bit of pain and suffering and some disappointment. But there are ways to do it. And at the end of the day, we have to find that balance to make our customers happy.
Absolutely. Julianne.
I really love what Sherry and Audrey have said here in terms of that surprise element, because that makes such a difference to the passenger. Because even if you are disappointed that you cannot have a meal, if you have something, it makes that passenger just go, okay, I haven't been able to have this, but this is a complete surprise. Oh my gosh, I can have this. And that is the difference. So I think that's commendable from both of those airlines as well. And to Gary's point, yes, there is a huge amount of wastage, but I do believe there's a huge amount of wastage from main cabin as well, that where people don't want to eat the meal or choose not to have a meal on a lot of short haul flights as well, where they do serve a small sandwich or something like that. What is the wastage on that? And the comparison versus special meal. I think there's also a piece there that probably should be spoken about at a later stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Julianne, I want to kind of go off what you mentioned here too about that element of surprise and being a passenger who can still have something. When maybe I'll have you, you know, kind of speak to this from your position, but and then I want to, of course, hear from everybody else, especially the airlines. But how does having, that guaranteed security of receiving your special meal as a passenger when you need it, you're on a long haul flight, you've been traveling for 24 hours already, maybe, how does that build brand loyalty for the airline from that passenger? Do you want to start with that one, Wim, from your positioning?
I will try to say something about it. The positioning of our brand, or the positioning of the airline, I think that it works two ways. The airline decides to work with us, and we together we find a way to get the meals on board, and there's the caterer involved. First thing is that always the logistics need to be that the meal is really on board. It's not somewhere lost in the way up, because this is the worst case that can happen. And if you have an airline that adapts and says provides something that's really surprising, that's good. Because we also have one or two that don't have an alternative, and they serve apples and bananas, which is not good for a long flight. And it reflects on us, because many of the customers know that we are the provider of the meals, ex Amsterdam, ex Paris, etc. So this is really something that it's really important to have the meal on board. So it's logistic wise, it's pre-ordering, as Carrie says, it's really important. I don't think that the major airlines work with non-pre-ordering system. In our clients all have this pre-ordering system, so you need to order before, and I think it's 48 hours or 24 hours for special meals like kosher. It's 48 hours. So it can be done. It needs to be on board. But if something happens, then what is the alternative? I think it's really a logistic nightmare for the caterer to get it on board on the right flight. If something has happened with the connecting flight or the flight before, then who knows where the special meal is? So I'm not a specialist in that area, but I can see that there's a lot going on with that.
So, Wim, that's exactly what the new tech addresses, okay? So the days of 24 hours or 48 hours, those timelines are getting shorter and shorter. And how we communicate that information to get caterers is what's gotten better, right? So the days of sending emails and spreadsheets and just the info lying in 5 different systems, hoping to get it to the right place at the right time, that's behind us. And now airlines are jumping on board where it's one platform that joins all the caterers and last mile providers together. You've got a dashboard that shows you exactly what's going on for that flight, where the passengers are, what they're expecting to get, where are the meals, all of that's coming together now in a new way. And we're finally coming out of that 30-year dark era of trying to cater and provision flights. It's been just so complicated. The logistics are amazing. But now with the tech, it's just really made easy to get that last minute detail to the parties that need it. Even an aircraft swap, right? Okay, I was gonna put this in slot 204, but we just swapped, and the guy who's on the ramp swapping out he says, no, this one doesn't go in 204, now it goes in 207, and he knows that just scanning the code on the label. So it's just a lot of things happening right now in technology that is making these problems a thing of the past, right? And we've seen that since coming back out of COVID, right? That people they don't want to go back to pre-COVID standards. They're expecting more now. They're expecting better food options, higher quality food options.
Yeah.
That's the new trend. Yeah.
Thorin, can you speak to, having a robust special meals program, getting passengers what they need, and how this builds brand loyalty for the airline?
Yeah, just as I mentioned before, I think we have the advantage of being a small airline with one hub, as well as we we only serve food for our business cabin. So the special meals program only applies to that. But we can definitely feel that. And after we upgraded our meals, and when doing our meals, like regular meals, we always think about the processes. Okay, how can we make our special meals the most similar way to this? So we try to make the passenger feel safe eating the meal. Of course, that is always our first priority, that's safety, but as well as feeling like not looking over to the next person's tray and being like, oh, I wanted that. So we want them to feel happy with the tray they are receiving, and at the same time, of course, feeling safe and feeling the trust with us that they can consume the meal. And we have also, of course, our cabin crew always has up-to-date data sheets for every single meal we serve. That does not only apply to the special meals, but of course, those are the ones that are mostly requested from our passengers. Yeah, and we feel that they ask for those information, so they are double checking our work, which is good. But yeah, we are not dealing with an issue where passengers, or we feel that our passengers are trusting our special meals program on board,
Okay.
which is always our aim.
Yeah, absolutely. Sherry, from you.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's a large trust factor, right? We want it builds loyalty for customers to be able to trust us that they, you know, are going to get safely to their destination, they're going to be comfortable, and they're going to have the meal that they so desire. One of the things that we were toying with before COVID, it was on pause, and it's hopefully going to come back here in the near future, is being able to anticipate that need for those customers. So for our elites, if they always order the gluten-free meal and they've shared with us that they're gluten intolerant, we were working to kind of pre-populate and in their booking path be able to say, hey, last time you were with us, you told us you wanted gluten-free. Can we go ahead and provide that for you again? You know, we do think you have to have them confirmed, but it would be great to move to being able to anticipate those needs. I think customers appreciate that greatly. I mean, for us, we have customers who hope they're going to get upgraded. They don't, and so they end up in the main cabin. And of course, we reward them with a few things, but you do have to have options available for them. So when we're building out that main cabin, we try to have, you know, a variety of things on domestic flights because you do want to be able to give them something. And so even if it is a can of Pringles, right? But it is something that they can have on their, you know, 2-hour flight, because they didn't get their premium cabin upgrade. And so building that trust is so important. It is so easy to break that, you know, a couple of disappointments with an elite, and they've got plenty of other options to choose another airline, you know. It's really critical to our success, and we trust our catering partners. But for me, I'm always about, I want to trust but verify. And so we're trusting them, but at the end of the day, all of the risk is really on the airline, right? It's not going to be the catering company that the customer is going to be disappointed in.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Audrey, I see you nodding your head. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on building brand loyalty.
I mean, that very much emulates what Sherry and Lauren just said. You know, we all face similar challenges. We might have slightly different approaches, but I mean, we all speak to the same stories. And it's absolutely crucial that our customers have brand trust in order to secure their brand loyalty. That goes without a doubt. There is so much more to be done in the industry. Both food, airline, etc., to provide a more safe and secure offering that will show and display the amount of care and attention that we pay to those programs, and increasingly so, but also doesn't jar with the rest of our brand and identity, and especially when it comes to it, you know, being showcased in our food and drink services. So it's a long road, We take it on with gusto. We love a challenge, and there's plenty to be done in that space. I am most excited in the future to be able to lean more on technology, to try and preempt customer requirements and wishes, but also find efficient ways to offer choice whereby it's possible to do so, to remove risk where it is an opportunity to do so through AI and compliance. There's so much that can be done in that space, and it's only the beginning of the journey. So yes, it's exciting, it's a minefield, but it's absolutely something that should be the core of the focus.
Absolutely. Julianne, I'm excited to hear from you as, both a passenger and the CEO of Creative Nature about this, idea of building brand loyalty. And then I'll also flip it over to you, Julianne, to ask any final questions or follow-up questions that you might have. And then we'll go around our panelists to hear 1 or 2 points similar to what Audrey has shared here just now, but kind of 1 or 2 points about changes that you would like to see for special meals in the future. So Julianne, over to you.
Yeah, I guess brand loyalty is what every business wants. It's whether you are the food brand, whether you're the airline, whether you're the caterer, you want that customer to come back to you. And I don't know if many people know, there was a recent survey done by CFAAR, and it was around 5,000 people, and it showcased that 75% of individuals expressed a strong willingness to choose the same airline if they had a good experience with their food. And these were specifically people who have allergies or dietary requirements. But it sort of proves that actually that loyalty program and that thing that Sherry was talking about, what can I offer them that's slightly different and slightly more personalized to them if they don't get an upgrade, but they actually get what they need and that the safety is at heart. But also, as a person with allergies and having done a survey with multiple people who fly with allergies, they're willing to pay 30% more. 30% more is quite a lot when you think about it. And I personally would pay even more than that just to make sure that I can get from A to B safely. So I am all for that. Okay, what choice can I have? That's one area, but also what is that airline going to do so that I can get to my holiday without causing anyone problems, without causing the staff problems, because it does weigh heavily on them. Because when you talk to the crew on board and they're not always briefed on allergies as well as expected, they worry, and it creates their own anxiety on board the flight. And you don't want that being the passenger, because if you can see they're worried, you end up being more worried yourself. So I think this is a global problem that probably needs to be addressed in terms of brand loyalty. But I think that the airline and the travel industry in particular has such a opportunity to be able to keep people flying their airlines or going on their trains or whatever that might be, but they have the opportunity to do it, because no one's doing it perfect yet, because there isn't a perfect solution out there at the moment. Technology is changing things, which is fantastic, but I think there's a long way to go still. And by offering these small little changes, those are the airlines that I think are going to make the difference in the industry, because people are going to go, actually, I'll fly them because they've done X, Y, and Z for me.
Yes, absolutely. Gary?
So now I'm going to come as a client and not as a tech guy. And I'll just say this with regard to brand loyalty. So I get to fly out and meet all kinds of airlines. So I'm not, because I don't work for an airline, I don't fly on one particular carrier all the time. So I see them all. And really the airlines that are winning over the brand loyalty are those who can offer a better personalized service. So when I get on board and my flight attendant addresses me by name, because they know who I am in that seat, and then they know my special meal request, and they come and they say, hey Gary, and your special meal, you ordered this or that. That's a much better experience than when the flight attendant comes down And I'm like, excuse me, I had the special meal. Very different experience. And as far as brand loyalty, excuse me, those who offer that personalized service are certainly able to, first of all, count on that client likely coming back and start to charge a little bit more for their ticket. And again, in the analytics that we're seeing today, what Julianne just said is absolutely correct. People are willing to pay more for better at this point, and that's where the industry is going.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Gary. So I want to hear 1 or 2 points from everybody, some changes you'd like to see for special meals. So let's go in the same order that we introduced ourselves earlier. So we'll start with Sherry, then we'll see from some thoughts from Wim, Audrey, Gary, and then Thorin, and we can maybe end with yours, Julianne, as co-moderator. So let's hear from Sherry.
For me, I would love for us to evolve into getting customers excited about their meal and being able to meet their dietary requirement. Today, we list what a gluten-free meal is, and it's going to be free of wheat, and we give that description. But for our standard customers, there's a little bit more romance copy to that, if you will. I would love to be able to give customers that ability to say, you're going to get, a roasted chicken breast with, roasted vegetables, and get them excited. And I think that would be a great evolution for us to kind of expand those IATA codes. I also think they need a little bit of updating. I think they need, Julianne talked about multiple, dietary requirements where one code's not enough. I also think there's different needs today. I heard of FODMAP recently, which is where people need low, sugars. They can't have garlic and onion because they cause intestinal distress. So they were asking how we're going to meet that one, right? And so I think it just needs some modernization and some updating for today's customers. I would love to see that in the future.
Yeah. Wim, let's hear from you next.
I think in this group, it's not about awareness. Everyone knows the issues and the difficulties and the chances. I'm happy to know that, to hear that it's also not only about cost, because this is what we are hearing. It needs to be about safety, about service, and about availability. And I think these are the main issues today. And there's a lot of work to be done to get it all on board, on the right time, on the right place, served to the right passenger. We want to be part of it, and I would like to invite you all to meet in Hamburg. We will be there with a small stand, but we will be there and hope to see you all.
Yeah, absolutely, Wim. I would love to meet you there. Audrey.
On my side, I guess I'm excited to continue to be an active participant in the conversation as it continues to evolve, both as an advocate for our customers, but also for our industry and the challenges that sit therein. I'm also excited for the opportunities that technology will provide us increasingly now and into the future, both on the side of compliance and on the side of customization and personalization, because there's so much to be won in that space, and also exploring opportunities to be closer to the customer demand as it continuously evolves, as Sherry referred to, as Gary referred to, offering more choice whereby it's possible, preempting selection and choice, and everything more like new trending habits of the future and of current that are emerging.
Yeah. Gary, you're next, and then Thorin.
What I'd like to see is what I'm already seeing, which is more and more airlines and caterers embracing my company's software. That's already happening, and I think that that trend is going to continue. We want to make communication between all parties easier and more real time, and when you do that, you can have better offerings up and get closer to the last minute, right? And that's just something that we see as picking up speed, and we're really happy about it.
Yeah, I'm just excited to learn more about the needs of those passengers that choose or have a special meal on board with us, and I'm excited on using technological solutions more, with it being pre-purchase options or having, like Gary mentioned before, where they get the selection beforehand and choose between 3, 4, 5 different options before they board their aircraft. So I want these passengers to be just as excited about the meal tray they receive as every other passenger on board. And I believe we can do so without making it too complicated. It shouldn't be that complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Thorin. Julianne, excited to hear from you.
For me, I have a mission to make it easier for anyone with allergies, dietary requirements to be able to go on holiday, to travel. We should all be allowed to do it, and I'm excited to be able to see so many airlines adopting special meals, not just to give them an apple or a melon on board, but actually a real meal. They're putting it at the forefront of their programs. And yeah, I can't wait to see how this grows in the industry over the next 2 to 3 years, as the previous 5 years have been quite tough to be able to get people to listen and understand that there really is a need for special meals. So yeah, I'm really excited.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to everybody. Like Lance said before he left, I feel like we could talk about this for hours and hours. So I want to thank you all, Sherry, Julianne, Gary, Thorin, Audrey, Wim, for joining today. It was so great to speak about special meals with you. And I look forward to hopefully seeing everybody in Hamburg. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
for now.